If you're waiting for an avoidant ex to come back because you think they'll miss you, feel lonely, or suddenly realize how much they love you, you're looking for the wrong signs. That's not what activates an avoidant. In fact, the more you focus on emotional signals, the more you misunderstand what's really happening. When an avoidant starts moving towards someone again, it rarely looks like desire at first. It looks like distance, silence. Sometimes it even looks like them pulling further away. And that's what makes avoidant breakups so confusing, because their emotional system doesn't respond the way most people expect it to. Avoidant attachment doesn't remove emotion. It delays it. Avoidants are wired to prioritize nervous system regulation over connection. Their system is trained to seek calm, control, and self-sufficiency, especially when emotions start to rise. So when a relationship ends, the first thing they feel is not loss. It's relief. And that relief convinces their brain they made the right choice. Right after the breakup, the pressure is gone. The emotional expectations are gone. The fear of disappointing someone or being pulled into deeper closeness is gone. Their body finally settles. And because the body feels calmer, the mind interprets that calm as certainty. This is why avoidants often look completely fine after a breakup. Sometimes they even look happier. They return to old routines. They stay busy. They distract themselves with work, the gym, friends, or social media. Some start dating quickly, not because they're healed and not because you didn't matter, but because distance feels safe and safety feels like relief. This phase is not closure. It's deactivation. And this is where most people make the biggest mistake. They try to talk things through. They ask for clarity. They express how much they're hurting. They hope that if they explain themselves well enough, the avoidant will finally understand. They send long messages. They ask to meet for coffee. They try to remind the avoidant of all the good times, thinking nostalgia will break through their walls. But emotional pursuit during this phase does the opposite of what you want. Every attempt to reconnect emotionally tells the avoidant's nervous system that the very state it just escaped from is waiting for it again. And that system will protect itself by pulling further away. Not because you're wrong, but because closeness still feels like danger. The irony is painful. The more you show them you care, the more their system interprets it as proof they need to stay away. Your love becomes the evidence they use to justify distance. And the harder you fight for connection, the more their defenses strengthen. Relief, however, doesn't last forever. After a few weeks, sometimes longer, the nervous system stabilizes. The distractions lose their edge. The calm starts to feel flat, and something subtle begins. They don't miss you yet, but they notice your absence, not in dramatic ways. In quiet ones, they reach for their phone to share something and stop. They experience free time that doesn't feel as satisfying as they expected. They sit in silence that feels empty instead of peaceful. But avoidants rarely label this as missing you. Emotional labeling feels unsafe for them. Instead, they say things like, "I'm tired," or "something feels off." This is emotional relabeling, a defense they learned early in life when direct emotional expression wasn't safe or welcomed. Many avoidants grew up in environments where showing need led to rejection or dismissal, where vulnerability was met with criticism or withdrawal. So they learned to translate emotional pain into something safer, something less exposed. This is also when many avoidants start dating again, not because they're over you, but because they need proof they're okay without you. They're trying to confirm their independence. They want to feel in control again, but the new connections feel shallow, forced, surface level. The conversations don't flow the same way. The silences feel awkward instead of comfortable. And without meaning to, they start comparing not emotionally but mentally. The ease of conversation you had, the comfort of shared silence, the feeling of being understood without having to explain everything, the way you laughed at their jokes before they even finished the punchline. This is the early activation phase, and it has nothing to do with you chasing, explaining, or proving your value. In fact, the more stable and neutral your absence is, the more their sense of control begins to slip. And for an avoidant, loss of control is what opens the door to deeper emotion, because control was a shield keeping those emotions buried. A few months in, avoidance starts to fail. The distractions stop working. The routines feel hollow. And now the activation becomes specific. They don't just feel that someone is missing anymore. They realize it was you, not just a relationship, not just comfort. You. They start seeing patterns. This wasn't the first time they pulled away when things got real. This wasn't the first time they chose distance over vulnerability. But this time, the person they left didn't chase, didn't collapse, didn't wait in emotional limbo. And that's what forces self-reflection. They replay moments they avoided before. Times you reached out and they shut down. Times you were patient while they stayed guarded. Times you gave them space without making them feel guilty for needing it. They start seeing the relationship from your perspective for the first time, and it's uncomfortable. And that realization brings regret. But it also brings shame. And shame makes avoidance freeze. Instead of reaching out, they watch. They check your social media. They ask mutual friends about you in casual ways that aren't casual at all. They imagine conversations they'll never have. They rehearse apologies late at night, and then convince themselves it's too late. Not because they don't care, but because caring now feels dangerous. If the activation continues, it stops being mental and becomes physical. Tight chest, restlessness, trouble sleeping, a persistent sense of loss they can't distract away. The body finally catches up to what the mind has been avoiding. This is delayed grief, the pain they postponed finally arriving. This is also the point where some avoidants finally see their pattern clearly. They realize their independence wasn't protecting them from pain. It was guaranteeing it. They recognize that every time closeness triggered fear, they chose distance. And every time they chose distance, they lost someone who mattered. Some avoidants seek therapy here, not to get you back, but because their old defenses no longer work. They start learning how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, how to communicate instead of shutting down, how to stay present when emotions rise, how to recognize when their nervous system is reacting to perceived threat rather than actual danger. And here's the hardest truth. By the time an avoidant is fully activated and emotionally capable of coming back, you're often already gone emotionally. You've healed. You've rebuilt your sense of self. You've stopped waiting for someone to choose you after losing you. And that's why their return, if it happens at all, often comes too late. Avoidants don't come back because you proved your worth. They come back when their nervous system learns safety through loss. And that has nothing to do with your value. If you're wondering what actually activates an avoidant to come back, the answer isn't chasing, convincing, or staying emotionally available while they withdraw. Activation happens when distance removes control, when absence becomes stable, and when their system finally feels safe enough to feel. But this understanding is not an invitation to wait. It's meant to give you clarity, to help you stop taking their timeline personally. You didn't imagine the connection. You weren't too much. You were simply ready for a level of closeness they hadn't learned how to handle yet. Choose someone who can meet you where you are, not someone who needs loss, regret, and years of reflection to understand your value. Your worth was never delayed. Their ability to see it was. If this video helped you understand avoidant attachment more clearly, hit that like button and subscribe for more insights on attachment and healing after breakups. Drop a comment below if you've experienced these stages. You're not alone. And remember, someone who truly values you won't need loss to activate love.